revised and updated edition on the remarkable life of the only Muslim woman in the Constituent Assembly. This also holds a special place in our hearts, as apart from being on a life as Member of Parliament and later as Minister, Begum Qudsia Rasul's story is a story of an inclusive and secular India. This packed hall and the presence of our esteemed guests is a testament to Begum Qudsia's contribution in various fields. I would now request our guests, Salman Khurshid Sahab, Shri Manish Tiwari, Miss Indira Jaising, Miss Tehmina Punwani, Miss Nidhi Razdan and Kapil Kapoor to come on the stage and release the book.
What? The book?
Yeah, she wants her back.
What is it? You want to sit in the middle? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, she wants to sit there. In fact, she wants to sit there. It's easier to see the back. Flanked by. You'll be flanked by the two of you. You have to stand and you have to release the book first.
Come close, please. Please come closer. Madam.
Teacher, little colleague. Yep.
Come closer, madam. थोड़ा सा साथ में हो जाए. Madam, look here. Thank you.
I would like to invite Tehmina ji to say a few words.
Thank you, Neelam ji. Namaskar, salam, good evening. I wish you all a warm welcome today on this chilly evening. And I'm so glad all of you have been able to make it today, because the release of this book is something very special for my grandmother's family, and we are her family. I have both my daughters here, I have my granddaughter here. My mother was not able to come much as she was wanting to come, but she's now 93 years old and she couldn't make it. So, first of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Salman Khurshid Bhai, to Indra Jaising ji, Manish Tiwari ji and to Nidhi Razdan for their gracious acceptance to be on this panel today. Thank you ever so much. Next, I would like to thank Roli Books, captained by Pramod Kapoor. He's not here today, but ably managed, Roli Books is now ably managed by his dynamic two offspring, Kapil and Priya. Kapil is here today, and I'd like to sincerely thank them for taking the trouble to republish my grandmother's memoirs in a revised edition. And actually, you know, this book was first published in the year 2001. But at that time, my grandmother, by the time we received the first copies of the book, my grandmother had passed away just 4 days earlier. So we could not either celebrate the book, we couldn't have a book launch, and it just was in the bookshops for people to buy. And then I waited 20 years for the copyright to be over, and then I requested Roli Books, and they have very graciously published this revised edition. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful on behalf of my grandmother and her family. My grandmother, she She was 94 years old when she was confined to the house. She became housebound because of the travails of old age. So I suggested to her that why don't you write your memoirs? So she was quite excited with the idea, and so I offered her the services of a steno, but she said no, nothing doing, and she filled 4 registers in her own handwriting, in her embroidery like handwriting. I wish I could show you people her registers. Such neat handwriting, and she wrote her entire memoirs herself. And now that it has been published and republished, I'm sure she is smiling down from wherever she is and really happy that we get to see this day. I thank you all for being here today. And now, without further ado, I think we should let's start with the proceedings. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for that introduction for this book. Honestly, I didn't realize the contributions of Begum Qudsia until I actually read it, and it's really incredible, you know, what she achieved. And I thought I'd begin with the personal, because you write in the introduction that even though she was your grandmother, she was actually your mother and your father. She brought you up.
Yeah.
And I mean, just tell us a little bit about just traveling with her, the kind of people you were able to meet, the things that you were exposed to. Because this was a woman who was so well traveled, learned, who met so many different kinds of people.
Yeah, my grandmother was a fiery, feisty woman. She broke the shackles of convention. She discarded the parda. Her political baptism was when she was only about 29 years old, when she won the election to the UP council on a general seat, and a fatwa was issued against her, saying that, oh, a non-parda Muslim woman fighting on a male seat, no one must give her any votes. But she won the election none the same. So that's what she was. And she was a real trailblazer, trendsetter. I mean, she got on to the Constituent Assembly. She was then, after that, member of the Raj Sabha for 2 terms. After that, she shifted back to Lucknow, and then she was an MLA for 20 years. And during that period, she was a minister, etc. But yeah, you wanted to know something on the personal side. So when my father passed away when I was 11 years old, I was the only child. My Nani took it upon herself to become the matriarch and patriarch of my life, and she tucked me under her wing, and she took me everywhere. So she was a very social person because she was a politician, and plus because she was on so many committees, etc. So she met people from the high and mighty to the lowest of the low, people who were the common villagers in her constituency. And with her, I got to meet a lot of people, and she really expanded my horizon. But I must tell you one very interesting story. She was invited by the Chogyal of Sikkim on a state visit. She was a minister then, I think. And I was studying in boarding school in Darjeeling. So it was really sweet of her. She took the trouble of traveling first to Darjeeling to collect me so that she could take me with her to Gangtok on the state visit. I mean, she managed to get the nuns to give me chutti from school. So that evening we stayed the night at the Raj Bhavan in Darjeeling, and the governor at that time was Miss Padmaja Naidu. So I must have been about 12 years old, and over dinner, I must have made some impertinent remark, and so Miss Naidu flew into a fury, and she was really angry with me, and she told me leave the dining table.
What did you say?
I think, selective memory, because I was only 12, and it was something really, I swear I don't remember. Or maybe if I do, I just decided to forget. And so she told me, leave the dining table. And I protested and I said that I don't think you should tell me to leave the dining table. I haven't finished my dinner. So that made her even more furious. And then my grandmother said, my grandmother's a real diplomat. So she told me, she brought about a rapprochement between Padmaja Naidu and me, and she told me first you apologize whether you're right or wrong. And then she told Miss Naidu that perhaps you're being too harsh on a 12-year-old. So those were her diplomatic skills. And but I must say one thing which I learned from my nani was that she treated everyone equally, whether it was Raja, Rank, anyone. And what I think the one characteristic which I think stands out in her life is that it was a sense of fair play. She was fair, she could not bear injustice, she couldn't bear all the bribery and corruption that went on, even though she was in politics for 60, 70 years. 60, 70 years. But I think it was her sense of fair play that really stood out.
But that's a
Salman
fascinating
Bhai
story.
knew her very well. They were in the Congress together. And Salman Bhai can tell you a lot of stories also, I'm
But
sure.
I did want to ask you, I mean, I think you didn't know her personally, but the impact that she had on politics in UP in particular, like you said, standing from a general seat, fatwa, coming out of Parda, and really sort of being a pioneer politically, I mean, for a woman and a Muslim woman. You were telling me just before we came on stage that actually had a huge impact on so many other women who then stepped forward and became politicians.
She left behind a whole clutch of remarkable women. Wajad Habibullah's mother was one of them. I was newly appointed as president of UPCC, which is where her heritage and what we inherited from her, with including Tehmina, we met there. And these were days where there wasn't this vigorous campaigning of, we have to bring women into the forefront of politics in the Congress, main ladki hoon, lad sakti hoon. All that we did much later. But we did it once that remarkable footprint that she had left had somehow got faded. And there were a few women here and there, etc. in politics. But there was this clutch, as I said, of remarkable women who were there for every protest, who were there for every dharna, who were there in every meeting, right at the forefront. And each one of them at that time was getting on in age. They were in their 70s and so on. But till late 80s, they kept up right through. So I think she left a standard. Their remarkable kind of example she left for women in that generation. Is a very different kind of women that we now see in Congress politics in UP. And obviously, we would like to see many more of the kind that she developed during her time.
How did male politicians react to women in UP coming, into politics so actively at that time? Those who did, the few who did.
I think it was in later years that the resistance and hostility came, which then had to be overcome by specifically campaigning and providing them with notional reservations or whatever you call them. But she left a high standard, very high standard of public life in Uttar Pradesh. Sadly, she was already fading out by the time I got active in UP politics. But everybody knows about her. I mean, from all the way from Hardoi to Sandila, from Sandila to parts of Lucknow, etc. That's a name that everyone seems to have grown up on and continues to think as a part of the treasure of our past.
But what I also found interesting in Indira Jaising was that here she was the only Muslim woman in the Constituent Assembly, which is right there on the cover of the book. But do we know enough about the role that women like her played in the Constituent Assembly outside of, say, UP?
Yeah. So I would like to pick up on this very interesting expression used by Salman. He used the expression quote unquote fading out. I find it very interesting. Now, I'm not sure whether you want to relate it to the fact that by that time she had aged and was therefore not as active as before. But I tend to think that what surprises me is that she was alive. We were all around when she was alive, and yet she was never amongst us. This I find extremely intriguing. And given her footprint, which is all over UP, given the fact that she stood on an unreserved seat, a general seat for which she was ostracized more or less, at least there was a fatwa against her. Obviously, she was a woman of great substance. And yet, somewhere down India's political history, we seem to have forgotten women like that. And the real question to me is why? But the answer goes back very, very far. One can't just give a pat answer at a panel. Because speaking as a lawyer, you know, and Mr. Tiwari would know, in court we are accustomed to using the expression, the founding fathers of the Constitution. Till today, I have never heard a lawyer use the expression, the founding mothers of the Constitution. So there is this collective amnesia in India about the women of the Constituent Assembly. And I realized that it was only in the year 2012 that the government of India had released official publication documenting the speeches of all the members, women members of the Constituent Assembly. This was as recent as 2012. So obviously the question arises in my mind, how did this collective amnesia come about? And as I said, she was amongst us till very recently within living memory. And it matters a lot to me also to pick up on another issue that Salman mentioned, the contrast between the women of her generation and I would say even of my generation. So, and although I must give away a few personal details that I was also born before the independence movement, so I'm not really of your generation, maybe I come well before you. But you can see that the women of my generation also are very much in the public domain. And yet we have seen this phenomenon of the fading out, and I would like to know how this came about. In my opinion, it has political reasons. It's not age-related. It definitely has political reasons. It is to do, I think, just to throw out an idea, it is to do with the attitude of all political parties towards women generally. And Salman made another very interesting comment. He said, we treated these women very well. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? A bit patronizing, Salman, but never mind. The point is, times have changed, I guess. And it
You
would
can treat
be
me like a father, I have no problem.
no, there is none.
We can trust Indira Jaising to speak her mind. No, don't stop, please. We have to come back to you on those thoughts. But you raised this point about representation of women, which is the point I'm coming to now. Because Manish Tiwari, we've just come out of the Bihar election, where you saw an almost 10% gap in the voter turnout between women, which was much higher than men. And we've seen, not just in Bihar, but the participation of women in Indian elections has gone up substantially. And yet, their representation in parliament is still very poor. The political parties aren't really giving them tickets. And how long do you think this will go on, where women will be active participants in the election process, but will be okay with sitting out elections and not getting tickets? Is it a matter of time?
Well, first and foremost, let me say that it's an incredible book and it's an incredible story. And as with all stories and all lives of that time, it's so intimately intertwined with the entire trajectory of India's independence struggle, the partition that followed, the very hard choices that certain people, certain families had to make. Families got divided. Some people went across to the new dominion. Others took a conscious decision to stay back. And as I come from a state which suffered the most in the partition of India, because the partition of India wasn't really the partition of India. It was the partition of two provinces of India, Punjab and Bengal. And so therefore, I find this so incredibly fascinating that the story of India's partition has never been fully told. That generation which went through it, possibly because they had to pick up or what was left of their lives, decided to bury all those memories very deep down. And that's a story which needs to be written, and in parts it comes out in this book about the choices, about in 1947 how the family split, how they were trying to get information about each other, whether they were safe or and they were all right. So I think in many ways this chronicles not only the life of an incredible woman. It really chronicles those very tough and momentous times, and the fact that women like her had to walk that extra mile in order to surmount that. You see, the story of India's constitution making is in itself a very incredible story. Founding fathers, founding mothers, to use Indiraji's term. At a point in time when women, not 30 years before that, even in a place like England, had to launch a huge movement, the suffragettes, right? And finally got the right to vote, first women at 30, and then it came down to 25. The fact that the Constituent Assembly decided to give everybody the right to vote, men, women, irrespective of caste, gender, place of birth, literacy, at a point in time when India was almost 90% illiterate. It was such a huge leap of faith. And it's really disappointing that from such a progressive start that we made at the cusp of becoming a republic, the fact that we've not really been able to get those many women into our legislative institutions. And even when we did the Panchayat Raj, the 73rd, 74th Amendment of the Constitution, I recall this was Ludhiana in 2004. I just contested the election, and so I went to the Municipal Corporation House just to watch the proceedings. And I saw all these men sitting there. And we were supposed to have 1/3 reservation for women, 1/3 had to be women. So I asked the municipal commissioner, I said, who are these guys? So they said, wo councillor Pati hai. And I said, what the hell are they doing in this house? And he says, nahi, wohi aate hain. So, in Punjabi he told me, yahi aamde hain. And so I said, well, next time they're not coming. So, yes, it's actually really been disappointing, the way that we should have really not needed reservation. And this should have been an organic, natural process, which unfortunately, as Indiraji rightly said, because of political reasons. And the fundamental political reason is winnability. Right? So therefore, when it comes to deciding tickets,
Women voters are winning parties' elections today. So winnability I think, is an argument
but
anymore.
I'm not.
And personally, honestly, I remember I first debated women's reservations when I was in Lady Shri Ram College, which was 30 years ago. So now you know my age. I was against it then, I'm against it now.
No. But I'm not giving an excuse for the exclusion.
No, I know.
All that I'm saying is that the reasons why it has happened are not cogent reasons, and this shouldn't have happened.
But you know what? A statistic that actually bothers me even more when I look at the 18th Lok Sabha, Salman Saab, is that lowest share of Muslim MPs in 60 years. Okay, it's less than 5% of the 18th Lok Sabha's members are Muslims, and this is men, women, etc. there are about 24 Muslim MPs in all in the current Lok Sabha. That statistic, I think, is very, very telling. And I think there's only one Muslim MP, woman MP, in Parliament today.
That's quite shocking.
I mean, how did we, get here? Because don't expect the BJP to give Muslims and women, Muslim women representation. What happened to everybody else?
This is something that requires very, very careful and deep analysis. It's a lot to do with what is happening with society as a whole. It's a lot to do with what is happening with how Muslims have made choices. I think it's a complicated thing. It's not sort of just one level thing. It's a many level thing. But because you've touched upon this, I thought the book is an interesting marker for two things. And some of those continue to reflect on the larger issues that we have in our country today. One was how she, in fact, I was looking at the back of the book, which says it was first published in 2001, and it was called From Parda to Parliament. How did she, in her life, and those around her who supported her, obviously there were people in her family who supported her in this endeavor, is how did they manage to help her live two lives, the life of the Parda and the life of Parliament. She continued to be in Parda when she had to meet her mother-in-law, because the mother-in-law was very conservative from Sandila, and she was out in the open as any person if she was in public life. How did she combine those two things is really remarkable, and in many ways the same mirror image can be seen in Muslim society today. I may be wrong about this, but I see many more Muslim women, middle class, lower middle class women, who are in hijab today than I used to see 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And therefore, obviously, there is something happening in society that is causing this to happen.
Is it just that, or is it also a lack of will by political parties, again, even your party, the Congress, to give Muslim women tickets, representation?
No, I know, but there are some interesting problems here. When I was minister along with my friend Manisha, somebody came up and said that they wanted to go on Hajj, and I said, please do, why not? Could go on Hajj, women who wanted to go on Hajj. And they said, we can't get a passport. I said, why can't you get a passport? Anyone can get a passport. And the trouble was that they were in hijab. They wouldn't show their face. And the passport rules said that you have to be photographed so that your face can be identified. Now, I don't know if they found a solution to that today, but it's a problem, very strange sort of problem. And there are interpretations of Islam which says that hijab doesn't require a full covering of the head.
So hijab is the reason that they're not getting tickets?
No, I'm saying hijab is one element. They're not getting tickets because Muslims are not getting tickets. That's a different thing. But if less Muslim men get tickets, then of course even lesser Muslim women get tickets, etc. What I'm saying is that this requires an analysis, and is it just the outsider who was doing it? Or is it something that's happening within society also, where the failure is of people who are leaders?
As an observer of politics, and I'll get Indra Jaising into this, my own feeling is, I feel that today, like I said, we don't expect the BJP to obviously stand up for Muslims, but you do expect opposition parties to speak up. The Congress in particular, which has a long history. And has it failed in that today? I mean, I don't mean to make this political, but it is very much, it's a real issue. So if the Congress can't step up and give, tickets to Muslims, women and men, then who will?
I would prefer not to deal with it as a present-day problem. It is a problem which goes back very to the distant past. And as Manish rightly pointed out, it was the contribution of. My problem is not Congress as opposition. My problem is Congress as the leader of the freedom movement. in that capacity, how have they maintained the legacy of the freedom movement? That would be my question. Because Manish Tiwari pointed out that the real achievement, the drafting of the Indian Constitution was an act of creativity. It was unique. The whole process was unique because it's like a nation trying to define itself. So, and this was possible because it was Gandhiji who brought women out on the streets. As he points out, even in advanced countries in the world, women were not out there on the street, but India did it. And they were all there. She was a product of that movement. And so my question really is, what happened to that movement? You know, where are the values of that movement lost today? If we had clung on to those values, then we would not have experienced the problems that we are experiencing in the modern day. So I would prefer to deal with the Congress as a political entity rather than as an opposition party.
May I just say something? I said instead of this book is really about my grandmother, so I think should we just avoid the politics of today because that's a sore subject for everybody. So I'd like to just say,
Not really, because I think if we don't address things honestly, even in a book discussion at the IIC, then I don't know when we can have an honest discussion.
so can I just tell you a little bit of a background of my grandmother?
Please.
Why she was so feisty and fiery and she broke the shackles of convention, etc., because I think her genetic makeup was such. Her paternal family was the Malerkotla family and her mother's family was the Loharu clan, both very feisty clans. So actually what happened when my great grandfather, he was the scion of the Malerkotla family, and his first wife, he was married to for barely 6 months, got poisoned to death. So he was very disillusioned by the palace intrigues and the politics of the time, and so he decided that he's leaving Malerkotla for good and he was never going to come back. In fact, he never went back. Only his body went back to be, after he died, to be buried in the family vault. So then he set up 3 homes. One in Lahore, which was called Zarafsha. One home in Simla, which was called Naubahar, because the summer capital used to be there, because he was also very involved in politics. And one more home in Delhi on Sikandra Road, which was called Darya-e-Daulat. And that's the place from where my grandmother got married. So at that time, my great grandfather, Sir Zulfikar Ali Khan, had sworn when he left Malerkotla that I will never marry my daughters into ruling families. So when it was time for to get married, that time I think it was Sir Malcolm Haley, who was the governor of Punjab and who was well known to my great grandfather. He then went on to become the governor of UP. And then he got in touch with Sir Zulfikar Ali Khan and he said, I think I found a suitable match, a suitable boy for your, where's Vikram? I found a suitable match for your daughter. He is a young talukdar from Sandila. He's from Jalalpur estate and not royal family. And so the wedding took place in the Sikandar Road house in Delhi. So he was very liberal. He didn't force my Nana didn't force my grandmother into wearing parda. He only said that when you go to visit your mother-in-law, that time you please be in parda, otherwise rest of the time you do what you want. So he's the one who really encouraged her political life and let her come out into the open. So I think that makes a lot of difference as to who your family members are. Because my grandmother got this zest for politics from her father because he was a member of the Viceroy's Council and etc. And she used to keep his political diary, write his notes for him and all that. And then she married a very liberal man who didn't stop her from going out into the world and standing for elections and having fatwas issued against her. So I think all that makes a difference. Today the atmosphere is, the entire atmosphere in the country is something else.
Are we allowed to talk about it?
Yes.
I just wanted to know if anyone had questions, because if you do, you can please raise your hand. I'm happy to take a few questions for the panel. So we'll come back to that in about 5 minutes or so. But Manish Tiwari, would you like to take on that question of the representation of Muslims in Parliament? I think that is a very important point. If we have, I think, just a handful of Muslim MPs in Parliament, today only one Muslim woman MP. How do we walk away from that? How do we change that?
It looks about one that looks about.
Yeah, one.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Look, ultimately, given the diversity of India, you make a fair point that there should be equitable representation. I don't think anybody really can have a quibble with that. Why is it that the representation of not only Muslims but minorities per se is dwindling? Is a very serious question which challenges the fundamental precepts of pluralism. If you recall, in 2019, the Lok Sabha used to be a house of 545 people. There were 2 nominated members from the Anglo-Indian community. The government decided to do away with the representation to those 2 members of the Anglo-Indian community by amending the constitution. There was no outcry in this country, except for the Congress and the opposition opposing that particular amendment. Where did we have anybody speak up that you've decided to disenfranchise members of an Anglo-Indian community who were given nominated seats by the Constituent Assembly, for cogent reasons, as there were cogent reasons for every other article of the Constitution? So I think you are really confronting a more deeper, serious, structural question. You talk about the 6. I mean, if it wouldn't be for Punjab, the representation would be absolutely minuscule. It's another matter that the UPA government was headed by Dr. Manmohan Singh, not because of his identity, but because of who he was, a renowned economist and an intellectual in his own right. So yes, this structural question needs to be addressed. But on the broader question that you had raised, I think there is still a glimmer and a spark. And that was reflected in the debate on the Waqf bill, in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. I think there wasn't a single political party in the ranks of the opposition which didn't stand up and call a spade a spade. So it's not all gloom and doom. Yes, these are challenging times, because ultimately it all goes back to the partition again. You see, out of partition emerged 3 things. Islamic Pakistan and 2 visions of India. A pluralistic vision which believed that notwithstanding a religious partition, India should be a place where everybody has his place under the sun. And there was a theocratic vision of India, which believes till today that if you had a partition on religious lines, it should have gone to a logical conclusion. And that conflict, which really shaped the initial years of India's nascent journey as a republic, is actually much sharper today than it was there even at that point in time. So that's the structural problem that you are really addressing today. And out of that flows, the rest of the attendant issues of non-representation, dwindling representation. That's where you really are.
I think Indra Jaising wants to comment on that, but I'm curious about one more thing from you. What do you think of the Women's Reservation Bill?
Okay, I prefer to address the first question first. Uh, I want to go back to the question which was again put on the table by Tehmina. She said my grandmother was a very feisty woman. Yeah. So I'm interested in knowing, how does a feisty woman transition from being feisty to being non-feisty? And that, I think, is the real question before us. And also, Manish, I would say that it's not just about Muslim women. I would say this to you. It's about all women. Okay? And by the way, Manish, one slight correction to your partition story. Yes, Punjab was partitioned. Yes, Bengal was partitioned. But Sindh was lost. And I come from Sindh. So I continue to feel like a refugee to this day.
Fair point.
Yeah. Well, that's the condition that a lot of people who are very much alive today and in public life find themselves in that situation. So, but that apart, to answer your question, this transition from being feisty to being non-feisty has nothing to do with age. Okay, you can remain feisty till your dying day. So, what is it?
Plan to.
Yeah.
3 cheers to that.
All of us plan to.
Yeah, but it is the chilling effect of the policies of the political parties on the community of women particularly, which are the cause of this transition. So take, for example, the Shahbanu case, okay? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't, your grandmother's not known to have been active on that issue in the sense of protesting and putting on the table that Muslim women, that there was nothing wrong with the judgment of the Supreme Court of India, which was rendered, which gave to them a pittance of maintenance. So why does that happen? Okay, it also happens because of the positions taken by the political parties to which they belong. There are those shackles on your own voice. Okay, and that's how this transition has happened. And yes, I agree with the narrative that has been presented here, that pluralism is under attack, but it's not the only reason. There are many other reasons where we have to look at the history of every single political party and their attitude and approach towards women, which has had a chilling effect on their presence and visibility in the public domain. And that automatically reduces their representation in parliament.
So then how do you look at the women's reservation?
The book and discuss the book. It's not politics.
Would you like to take over?
No, I had in fact read the book. I'm not taken over. Seriously.
I think if that's the reaction from your audience,
No.
I'd be happy to.
with your question.
No, please carry on.
May I just come in? One interesting dimension that we haven't touched upon yet is explains politics as well. But she and her family were attracted towards the Muslim League, and she was a very important member of the Muslim League. But when it came to make a critical choice about consequences of partition, she chose to remain in India and repudiated Muslim League, and that's when she came to the Congress Party. So for people who make a black and white divide between those who are with us and those who are against us, she has a remarkable story to tell in her life, that starting with Muslim League because she thought that there were some issues of representation and issues of outreach towards a community that she identified with, but yet she identified with a larger nationhood. So when the choice came, she stepped out and said, no Muslim League for me. So I will find another platform, and that's when she came to the Congress. I don't know if that's correct.
true.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think she didn't face any of this, because if you read her book, in one place she said that she's written very in very glowing terms about Sardar Patel. She's saying he was considered to be anti-Muslim, but she's saying, I never found him on any occasion. I met him many times, I had dinner with him, etc. I never found him to be anti-Muslim. In fact, I found him to be a very fair person. In the book, there is a photograph of her having tea with Sardar Patel. So she knew him quite well. So I think maybe because she was like one Muslim woman and no, she never suffered the travails of being, uh, what's the word of being.
Discrimination.
Yeah, discrimination. Thank you so much. She didn't face the travails of discrimination, I feel. Because throughout her life, also I think the way we've been brought up, also my two daughters are here, my granddaughter is here, my son-in-law is here. I think none of us have actually, I think we blended quite well. Maybe this is because of our genetic makeup or whatever it is. But yes, but we can't shove it under the carpet that there is a very strong anti-Muslim feeling today. Maybe because I'm married to a Sindhi and I've been brought up in a Sindhi household. So
Well, I think there are two issues.
maybe
As we were
that-
discussing.
yeah,
One
yeah.
is about representation of Muslims in Parliament today and women
Yeah.
overall, which is why I was asking about the women's bill. Sir, you had a question, please go ahead.
My name is Ijaz Makbool. I also belong to the same fraternity as four of the panelists are here. I'm also a lawyer in the Supreme Court. Only Nidhi happens to be in minority as Muslim women in the Parliament. I must take this. I congratulate Tehmina for taking out the memoirs of her Hadnani. And I must tell you, I have many of you know her for many years. I had been knowing her for a few years. And she has all the traits of her grandmother. And she has already narrated one about it with Padmaja Naidu. And let me dedicate one couplet from my book, Law, Humor and Urdu Poetry, which was released by Salman Bhai, that बाइज्जत रिहा हो गई वो कत्ल के इल्जाम से क्योंकि अदालत ने निगाहों को हथियार नहीं माना. My question to her is that the registers which were filled by your grandmother, that was in English, that was in Urdu. What was her?
No, she wrote in English, and as I've said in the preface, she wrote it in her embroidery like handwriting. She filled 4 large
That
registers
calligraphy,
so thick.
it used to be calligraphic.
No, इनका normal handwriting था, not really calligraphic, but it was a very neat handwriting, and the flow was very, very, steady. And if I have those registers, I must show it to whoever wants to have a look at them.
No,
They're
you should.
beautifully
Just
written.
get another question.
Photograph. I mean, she was 93 years old, right? When she wrote.
When she wrote the book, she was 94.
So, just one illustration in this.
No, and you can give
Just
it to
one
the National
illustration within
Museum
this book.
so that it should be
Oh,
kept in the
Actually,
foundation.
having the photograph in the book would be the big deal.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
photo.
I think we had a thought of that.
Yeah, but it's a nice suggestion.
Yeah.
Actually. We have time for a couple of quick questions. Yes, the gentleman in the back had raised his hand.
Yes, I'm Ashar from Awaz the Voice, and I would like to know from you what inspired you the most to republish the book again, and what will just take the message from the life of Begum Qudsia.
एक्चुअली जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा था कि ये बुक पब्लिश हुआ था 2001 में, लेकिन मेरी नानी का इंतकाल हो गया था ऑन द 1st of August 2001, और पब्लिशर ने किताबें हम लोगों को दी ऑन 3 or 4 days later. तो उस टाइम बुक का कोई रिलीज नहीं हुआ, देयर वाज नो एक्साइटमेंट, देयर वाज नो जुबिलेशन, अरे नानी का बुक मार्केट में आ गया, दुकानों में मिल रहा है. सो I waited 20 years for the copyright to be over, and then because Pramod Kapoor is a very dear friend, and so I requested him. Then I said, "Would you like to republish the book?" So he said, "Let me read it." So after reading it, then he said, "Yes, we would love to do it," and they've done a brilliant job. And as I said, I thank Roli Books. Kapil is here today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for republishing this book in this stellar edition.
I'm Sagari Chabra. I've been researching women freedom fighters for a long time. I'm director of the Hamara Itihas Archives of Freedom. Now, I've been in Southeast Asia recording surviving freedom fighters. And I found to my horror that the Rani of Jhansi regiment, one of the earliest women's regiments of the world, military, they never had a reunion. They never were recognized as freedom fighters. They never got a pension. So it was not only Gandhiji who got Indian women out on the streets. It was also Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and it was an international movement. People from wherever they were did what they could for India's freedom, and most of them have gone unrecorded. So the process of marginalizing women has been going on for a long time. The process of marginalizing, who was with Netaji? Shahnawaz Khan, who has brought his ashes when the plane has crashed. There's conclusive evidence that he thinks his ashes are placed in Rinpoche temple right now. You can do a DNA test and come to a conclusion. So I'm so happy to see a memoir by her, because we don't have the voices of the women themselves, and this is what I have been trying to do, record the voices of the people who were actually in the freedom movement. So thank you so much for bringing out this book.
No, we need
I look
people like
forward-
you and Nidhi
I
and
look forward to
other
it,
journalists.
but-
You're the one doing the work.
No,
Yeah.
the
I
great
look forward
work.
to
So
reading it
thank
and
you for
reviewing
that.
it and treasuring it, because this is really important work to have the writings, the feelings, the actual contribution of the women recorded in their own voices. Thank
Do
you
read
so
the
much.
book, you'll love it.
So, just last question.
My name is Sanjay and I have a question for Tehmina and Mr. Khurshid, if you would like to also comment. You said your Nani left the Muslim League. Did she ever discuss how Muslim leadership would develop in India after partition?
She actually, because she took the decision not, see, Muslim League was led by Jinnah, and Jinnah was the founder of Pakistan. So she was very adamant that she is not going to go to Pakistan. She's saying मैं पैदा हुई हूँ यहाँ इंडिया में, मैं इंडिया में ही रहूँगी. And
leadership would require purpose.
I
goals.
think she was not. She was just. I remember as she used to talk to me for hours, because I spent a lot of time with her, and she was. It was not for any political reason. She said, "मेरा घर यहाँ है, मैं नहीं जाऊँगी कहीं."
Mr. Khurshid?
Well, unfortunately we didn't have the advantage of being able to hear these conversations that Tehmina would have certainly enjoyed. She has a message, and that's why I brought this point out. And the message is that despite being strongly motivated for what you might describe as a Muslim cause, there was a larger perception of India and people. I mean, I think what she seems to have said was that I will stay here because this is my home and my people are here. That I represent these people and I have to be here for them, etc. And therefore, she rejected and repudiated Jinnah, despite being Jinnah and the rest being very impressed with her and being very, very fond of her. So people who speak of a doomsday of there being a dividing line between Muslims and others in this country have to understand that there are individuals who stand out to show that there is no dividing line. Even if you've had some inclinations and you've been associated with some aspects of a community aspiration, etc., it doesn't mean that you should be rejected or that you are rejecting everything else, because she stands like a remarkable example of that.
And in fact, it is the Vajpayee government who awarded her the Padma Bhushan. Yeah.
That's good. That's right.
So I think this not concerned about Hindu-Muslim divide runs in me, my children, my grandchildren, all of us.
Well, a big congratulations to you again for the launch of this book once again. It's really, as I said, a remarkable body of work, and as you said, something I think that I think all young women in particular should read. And men too, but I think it's very inspirational about breaking shackles and breaking the mold. Thank you very much to all our panelists.
Nidhi, I don't think we can end this meeting without acknowledging that her daughter was a journalist, and this room has lawyers and journalists. They seem to be a natural combination between
Yes, my mother.
journalism and laws.
My mother
A lot
was
of people
supposed
have
to
come
be
here for
here
your
today.
mother.
My mother was supposed to be here today, and she was feeling fine all these days. She did fall down about 10 days ago, and she had a backache. I even took her to the doctor. Her doctor, Dr. Romil Tikku, is very good looking, so she only likes to go to him. So my mother is still
brilliant
very
doctor.
conscious
of the fact, yeah, no, I only go to Dr. Tikku. I said, why? Because he's good looking. Says the yes. But he gave her the go ahead and said, "There's nothing wrong with you." But today in the morning when she woke up, she said, "I'm not feeling at all well." So I didn't want to take a chance.
Well, we hope she feels better.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. Thanks a lot.
We all wish her well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Mr. Bhargav, let's see you.